Hey guys, it's Gunther here from Outdoorphoto, and I'd like to tell you about the new camera from Sony. It is the Sony A75. Finally here, it's been a rumor for who knows how long, and the big whoop about it is it's full frame, it's 30 megapixels, shoots 30 frames per second. The electronic shutter is not something to laugh about, it is pretty good. And that's it, shoots 4K video. Thanks guys, look forward to sharing more of this content with you.
No, Gunther, I want to know what you think about the camera.
Okay, I can tell them a little more.
Please.
Let's dive in. Hey guys, let's check it out. So let's shift all the jokes and puns and everything else aside, and we get into the nitty-gritty of this A75. And I'm probably going to fumble about the 4 and 5 because there's an R version out there as well. But the A7R5 is a different model, and this is to replace the A7 IV. So all the kids and their 6, 7s have me all confused with these numbers. But the A75 is where the magic comes in, and the genuine feeling that I've got is this camera has gone on a sabbatical for a couple of months and years, and it's come back and there are some changes, but it's still the same person, but they're not the same. And that's what this camera is. That's what the Sony A75 felt like to me. Took the thing out, and the very first thing that I realized was the ergonomics around this camera and how it feels. Immediately holding a Sony, it feels blockish to me. But the new deeper grip that you have and the hold on it, I have pressed these little buttons here in the back quite often, which can probably lock them or do something about it. But that was an issue because a lot of the times when I grip it with these paws, I hit the ISO button. There we go, right there. So as soon as you hit that ISO button, that can cause a bit of issues. But the new grip, the around the front, just feels like, yes, I'm finally holding a superior piece of kit. And I loved it. I loved it. I love the change in the body and just the feel and hold of it. And sharing it here with some of my colleagues in the shop, it's also been the experience that that's the first reaction, is that they see it's a Sony. They're used to me sticking stickers all over the labels and everything else, so nobody knows what I'm using. They've got kind of an idea. But Lappies was actually the first one. As soon as he held the camera, he said, whoa, this is something new. And that was the fascinating part to me, is that you kind of get used to how these cameras feel, and you either like it or you don't. And with this, it's been thumbs up. I really love this new deeper grip and the ergonomics around it. But you're not buying a camera solely for the ergonomics, you're buying it for the internals. And that's where we start looking at things like the pixels, the frame rate, the performance that you receive out of this thing. And because Sony and everybody else who's pretty decent in what they do are focusing on hybrid shooting. So it's video and stills, and this camera has been designed with that completely in mind. It's got its pros and it's got its cons. And I'd love to fly over the pros about the camera because it's good. I love sharing positive experiences and what I think about it, but it's usually the nitty-gritty stuff, and that's where the internet runs away with the negativity. So looking at, we've got hybrid shooting, full frame, 30 frames per second, and the focusing system has had a significant upgrade. It's also got a new Bionz XR2 dual processor. It's one chip, actually two, but I'm not allowed to say it's two chips. But it's one chip working as one chip, and its performance is absolutely ramped up. But it came with its little niggles, and I don't know if it's just because I tested out this version and if it's a firmware issue or if I just mismatched some of the settings. Took it out with a 50-150 f2. Absolutely love this lens. If you've watched any of my videos previously, you would realize and know that I love a 70-200, but this 50-150 f2 lens is something majestic. But we're not here for this lens, we're here for the camera. Tested it out with a 300mm, with a 300mm and the 1.4 converter, and also took it out with a 200-600mm, because I think this camera is going to be focused a lot more towards that section of the market where people want a serious camera, but they also want full frame, and they're looking at shooting sports and wildlife. Shoots 4K video, 60p, full frame, no problem. As soon as you go into the 120 frames bracket, you start picking up a little niggle. It goes to a 1.5 crop. Is it a major issue? I think if you're shooting 4K 120, you got to do some planning about it. It's not the end of the world, but I do think you're kind of used to this one shot and framing it, and you want to do a slow motion shot, and you also want to do a high speed shot. So as soon as you go to the 120 frames and you want to slow-mo that, it becomes a bit of a niggle, tiny niggle, but we can look past it, we can work past it. And if you shoot 1080p, we shoot all our content in 1080p. We haven't had any complaints. If you feel our quality isn't high enough, please hit us up in the comment section below, and we can motivate it to start shooting in 4K. But 4K is 4 times the amount of data, memory cards, processing power, and everything else. Love the on-off switch around the trigger. I find with some of the other brands, Nikon's got that, Canon's moved their new cameras, on-off switch is also on the right-hand side, but it's at a weird location. But it is kind of one-handed operation. This is just so much easier. But I have found switching between the different brands, I do forget that it's on or off, and then I keep on pressing it because I want to wake it up. And then I've actually switched it off because it's conveniently placed. The touch screen, everything else, the flip out screen here. So once again, Sony have gone with that whole, what is better? Is the flip out screen better, or is the tilt screen better? And I said, well, you can decide. Do you want the flip screen? Do you want the tilt screen? We'll just put both of them in there. It's one mechanism for all of it, regardless if you want to tilt it, lift it up to the one side or not, or if you want to flip it out to the other side if you're shooting on a gimbal or anything else. You've got options. They're all there and available for you. So once again, this camera actually feels to me like it's something that's been designed by people who are actually shooting it. I've always said I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with the Sonys. I love the image quality that they produce. I love how some of them work. But then there are these, it just feels like it's been boxed up and shipped out. And the whole process working through the menus. So the menus they've sorted out since the A74, A7R5, A92, A93, A1 Mark II. Those menus are all the same, and it's exactly the same story here. It feels at home. With previous models, they shifted so many of the options around in the menus. It was a hatred for it. But now it's all working. When we look at the different ports, we're going to look at the side here. Love me a full HDMI port. That is perfect. We've got audio in here at the top. We've also got a multi-function hot shoe, so that's no problem. If you've got Sony mics with that connectivity, you can pop them in there. This camera, by the way, has the most fascinating useless feature with the internal mics having gone through this massive upgrade. That's weird to me, because if you're shooting serious video content, you know external mic is the way to go. So I don't know why they did that, or if it's in collaboration with more products coming out soon. Maybe XLR multi-function hot shoe adapters, so that you can run XLR ports in there, and that combines with that new internal mic system. I don't know, but it's had a massive upgrade. Then we've got your lekker 3.5mm jacks out to your headphones, monitoring audio, but this is the coolest part. If I open this up, you've got two USB-C ports here. One port specifically for data and another port for power. You can use either or. But the functionality is there that you can actually run power into it and you can also run data out of it. Let's take a simple example. My Shinobi 2 takes up my USB-C port on my camera. So I don't have another port for power or for anything else, and the Shinobi, this has 2 ports. That's brilliant. I love it. USB-C is the future. It's not the future, it's the present. It's the only reason I want to upgrade my cell phone is just because of that little port at the bottom. But I digress. We're getting back onto this Sony A74. Ports I mentioned. Another thing that's been a massive upgrade is it's got 6 gigahertz Wi-Fi connectivity. That means if you set it up, you can do wireless transfers of raw files in studio shooting wirelessly tethered. There's a whole new firmware update that's coming out for Image Edge. That's Sony's independent software, so in-house software. That is to handle everything that this camera can throw at it. Obviously, we've had a look at different software because this hasn't been released, and it's a brand new 33 megapixel partially stacked sensor. Some of you are going to call me on that, but just bear with me for a second here. It's a new partially stacked sensor. It's a brand new design. Yes, it's the same 33 megapixels that we just had in the A74, but it's a brand new sensor. And with that partially stacked sensor, it helps with the readout speed so that you can shoot an electronic shutter and not worry about that distortion. In very, very specific situations, you can pick up that electronic shutter distortion. I went out, I tested it, and I honestly couldn't find it. So unless you are going to pixel peep or shooting something extraordinary, I don't think it's going to be a problem. That means you're shooting full electronic shutter, which allows you to capture up to 30 frames per second with pre-continuous shooting. Now, pre-continuous shooting, one little niggle, again, it can't be assigned to a single button. Not from what I saw. I could be wrong. Please correct me in the comment section below. If I missed it somewhere, I honestly apologize. But I've been through this camera and I couldn't find it to allocate it to a single on-off switch. Touches base onto one last feature that I hate about the pre-continuous on this camera is that it gives you a quick glimpse that the pre-continuous is activated. It's a very small symbol in the viewfinder. And after that goes away, it doesn't show you that, it doesn't indicate it at all. So it has to go into a sleep mode or completely out of focus, into a rest mode. And as soon as you activate the systems in it again, then it'll quickly show that symbol and then it's gone. So unless you know, I mean, if we have a look here, scrolling through here, I have a bazillion photographs of zebras because of pre-continuous. And it's all because half pressing that shutter starts taking shots into the buffer. It doesn't save it to the memory card. Once you fully press the button, then it saves a half a second. And this is the magic about it. So let's get to the positive stuff because it's not all bad. What Sony have done here is great because you can adjust it time frame in steps from 0.03 seconds up to 1 full second prior to the hard press of the shutter. So let's say you start half pressing, it starts recording into the buffer. And as soon as you do a full press, it saves everything that's been in the buffer along with everything that you are shooting. It does affect the shooting speed or the buffer and how many shots you can shoot continuously. But it's a great feature because if you're shooting birds on a stick and you want to get bird in flight, that is a great option to capture everything. Now, we spoke about the USB-C ports, we spoke about that. We mentioned the new Bion's XR2 processor in this, which helps with a variety of stuff. Sony, we're talking about the AI features and the focusing systems and everything else. And I'll get to the focusing system because I have been deeply disappointed and deeply surprised by it. But taking a couple of steps back, the first thing that was super fascinating to me is that it's got an AI auto white balance functionality. So let's say we've got this setup here in this studio. I've got a warm light over shoulder. I've got cold light coming from the back. I've got a completely different spectrum of light coming from the front. All these temperatures are crazy, and to get everything balanced out in a way that actually works or doesn't work, I don't know. But to make everything kind of work, we've ended up in a situation with this and auto white balance systems that can very regularly drop you in a very warm or cold situation for your image or your footage even. But what they've managed to hit here is that if it recognizes your subject, so if you're doing video photography at a wedding or whatever, it'll actually detect your subject and work the white balance accordingly. That is fascinating, it's accurate, and it is super impressive. 5 stars for that feature. That brings me into a situation where you're out there running and gunning, you're photographing a wedding or whatever the situation might be, or you're doing other creative stuff in portraits, studios, whatever. This camera absolutely nails it. We took it out in the evening because some of the other features, the low light capabilities of the Sonys. You've got -6 EV focusing in this, which kind of segues me into the focusing system. That is super impressive. If we have a look here, if I scroll here through some of these shots, and these specific shots, we had a photo walk to a monument nearby, and I can't take credit for these shots. This was Lapis's creativity. Like I said, as soon as he took this camera into his hand, he was just like, hey man, that is super impressive. Shooting at very, very slow shutter speeds, that's 30th of a second, 2.2 ISO 2000. There is zero light in these conditions. We specifically went out there for cityscapes. It's on a dark hill, there are no lights up there, and still Lapis managed to capture this. I can only zoom in that far on this because the software that we're using at least reads the raw files. But only when this has been announced will Sony release all the codecs and everything else to the third-party softwares so that we can really tackle these files. So pretty happy with the image quality out of these things, and the dynamic range of 16 stops on the sensor is something ridiculous. Shooting these shots at very, very low shutter speeds also left us super happy because it's got 7.5 stops on the image stabilizer. Internally, that's on the body. That's been a massive upgrade from previous bodies. So even shooting something like this, we can now get our resident Lapis to gooi us a blue steel. And when we zoom in on this image, boom, there's our Lapis. Lekker. Isn't that what you want? Image quality, shooting this out of hand, 50 to 150 on a full frame body. Low light handling is incredible. We've got all the settings over here. That was nearly a second. That is the time, 0.13 seconds. Handheld. I didn't manage to go to a photo walk and I handed out all my tripods for the people who joined. So I was shooting handheld. And I managed to get this image quality handheld at 150 millimeters at that shutter speed. That is bizarre. You wouldn't do something like that in a real world situation. It's bizarre conditions. But I digress. Let's get back to the focusing system. So the shutter speeds, and obviously I had to put a South Afrikaanse dakhoender in here just out of love for Burger. But scrolling through these images, just got to get down here to my love-hate for this thing, because could not get it to focus on the birds. I know it's between grass and whatever. I've been fiddling with these settings and everything, could not get those birds in focus. I've got so many shots of them in those situations. And I mean, even with this, I managed to see this bird and I tried to grab it and it just didn't work. And the next moment it was, hold on, that's a European bee eater. That's a new one for me. That's a first. It's a first. Okay, but I digress. So, getting back into it, I mean, shooting these birds, no problem. That image quality is ridiculously good when it finds the bird, but as soon as there is any obstruction in the way, it's a problem. And it got so frustrating, I got to a bridge with a pied kingfisher, and I have to demonstrate this to you guys. So managed to find this kingfisher waiting there, hoping it's going to go up, hover, and do its thing. But I'm trying to photograph it sitting on the bridge, and this camera is just, I don't know, it's having a field day with me. It focused on pretty much everything else except the bird sitting there. And the most bizarre thing happened from there. The moment that bird took off, this camera had it, and that guy was perfectly in focus. Shot for shot for shot, no problem. So I don't know if it was because I set the responsive nature of the focusing up too high or what the situation might be. I don't know if it's a tiny little thing. Shooting portraits with it, no problem whatsoever. It rivals what I've experienced with the A1 Mark II. Image quality out of it is just absolutely brilliant. But that brings me back to those niggles. It doesn't have open gate. So whoa, the whole internet's going to be running around and setting buildings on fire. And let's dive into building bridges to get over these things. For those of you who don't understand open gate, this is my image. Right, so this is my full frame sensor. If you're shooting video, you're going to be shooting 16 by 9 if you're a normal person. 16 by 9 roughly looks like that. It's that section that you're going to be videoing. So that fits your 65-inch or your whatever. All the new TVs are 16 by 9, new monitors, everything else. So everything is 16 by 9. That's how we shoot video. And then this TikTok generation has been taking over. So my older generation kind of needs to stop complaining about your eyes are next to one another, not above one another. Either way, first to mobile. So it's full video for phones and vertical video, 9 by 16. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, you name it, it's all vertical. So usually you have to shoot, and then if you want to use that video on those formats, you have to go and crop. But now you're cropping 16 by 9 out of this. You're losing quite a lot. Out of that entire sensor, that's all you're getting if you're cropping out of your 16 by 9 footage. Most of the new video cameras does give you the opportunity. They function like that where they've got the rotate information. So if you shoot vertical video to start off with, it's going to be vertical. It's no problem. So if you've planned it that way, no problem. You've still got 16 by 9, all the major factors, all the major resolution. You don't have to worry about cropping. 16 or 9 by 16, but you're shooting vertical. So you're literally turning the camera and shooting vertical. But sometimes you've got those clients, you're shooting landscape, and now you have to go and crop. And that's where open gate plays a factor. Because as soon as you go to open gate, we are now shooting that section. And all of a sudden it opens it up from that block to that block. One very specific style of shooting. Open gate is a nice to have. If you are only going to shoot one format and you're going to crop either or, then it's going to use the entire sensor and crop those factors out. And it gives you the opportunity to be able to crop it out. So you can drop that and you've still got all that information. But in a real world situation, you're most likely going to shoot either vertical or horizontal. It just depends where you are heading and what your plans are, what the functionality is moving forward. All in all, the cons on this that I'm going to call out now, this camera doesn't have an open gate. Is it a deciding factor for me? Not at all. Not whatsoever. It's not a deciding factor to me. But it could be for somebody else. and people will be complaining about it. Where is that video going to end up? Is it going to end up on YouTube Shorts? Is it going to end up on Instagram or TikTok? Cropping out of 16:9 footage, you'll be experiencing some issues in terms of your aspect ratio, not your aspect ratio, but your field of view. The functionality around this camera is right up there. It's an absolute hybrid machine, shoots dual SD cards, UHS 2 card slots, but the one card slot doubles up. You can also put in a CF Express Type A card into it. Great design. I don't understand why they only doubled up on the one card slot. The other one is only an SD card slot. So the one slot is either or, SD or CF Express Type A, and the other one is SD only. So those are the options. That's the restrictions on this camera. Use the FZ100 battery. If you're shooting Sony, you probably have a stack of them already. So it pretty much covers all the bases. The low light handling, 16 stops dynamic range, 7.5 stops IBIS on the inside of this. The focusing system, not without its niggles, but definitely a massive upgrade. I mean, I took the A74 out and tried to go and shoot wildlife with that, and it wasn't bad. It was definitely one of the better focusing systems at the time that it was announced. But this is definitely an upgrade. I'd love to spend more time on it to figure out why I'm having issues with birds on branches. Everything else, no problem. Was focusing on all the zebras and everything else. I didn't experience problems there. Managed to spot an airy flying over, switched it over to the airplane tracking mode. No problem, hit it, no issues whatsoever. I think it's a brilliant camera. I think it is time for you to get into contact with the go-to guys at Outdoorphoto and come and check this beauty out. It is incredible. For now, I'm out. Lekker. Cheers.